So what are some signs that there might be radon in your home?
There is absolutely no signs.
That's scary.
You cannot see it and you cannot smell it.
Wow.
So the only thing you can do is to have your home tested.
That is scary. Yeah.
Welcome to Lawrence Real and Local, Keeping It Real podcast, presented to you by the Lawrence Board of Realtors. We are your go-to source for all things real estate in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm Lexie Haskin with Flint Hills Mortgage.
And I'm Emily Robertson with McGrew Real Estate. Together, we're here to make the journey to homeownership a breeze. Join us as we share insider insights, expert advice, and a dose of fun along the way.
Well, welcome to Lawrence Real and Local, Keeping It Real podcast. We are joined here by Kyle Bulmer with Bulmer Environmental Solutions, and we're just going to go over understanding radon and just radon mitigation, everything that goes into it. So thanks for being here.
Yeah,
you got it. Happy
us.
to be here.
Awesome.
Well, I'm glad that we have questions prepared because, I just don't even know where to start with this because I don't know anything about radon.
Right.
Yeah. Do you just kind of want to start with how you got into it?
And a lot of people don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So, once it is understood by people, they understand that it's a pretty serious health concern. If you have elevated levels of radon in your house, it's something that you definitely want to get tested. To test your home to see if you have elevated levels, and if you do, how to take care of it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've been doing nothing but radon mitigation and testing since January of 23 is when I started doing it full time.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2022, I actually went to K-State. They have one of the best programs in the nation for learning about radon. So radon measurement as well as mitigation. They have a course that they put on there. So I was there for a while learning how to do what I do now.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, let's just go into it a little bit deeper. What is radon and how does it affect your health?
So radon is it's a breakdown of uranium. Uranium breaks down into a radioactive gas. There's different levels of it that happen, and radon ends up being one of those radioactive gases that comes from uranium. It's just a breakdown of uranium as it goes. It can cause lung cancer. So the EPA has certain standards, guidelines, where they recommend houses should be. So picocurie liters is what is most commonly used in the United States for measuring the levels of radon. So the EPA has guidelines set that anything under 2.0 is what they recommend your house be at. Anything from 2.0 to 3.9 is one of those areas where it's possibly consider mitigation and correcting it, or do a long-term test and see where the level actually is. Anything over 4.0 is where they say mitigation needs to happen to this home.
Mm-hmm. How often do you think people should get their homes tested for radon? What is it the normal amount of time that people should go?
If you have a system or not. So if you don't know, you should just get it tested just to see where you're at. So this includes houses with basements and houses without basements. I think we'll talk about myths of radon here in a while, but one of the biggest myths is I don't have a basement, so I won't have any issues with a higher level of radon, and that's just not true. So slab houses can have issues just like houses with basements.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. If after, let's say, mitigation has happened inside your home, it's good to test every couple years just to make sure that the system is operating just like it should be.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sweet.
So can you explain how the testing process works?
Sure. Most often, there is a real estate transaction that takes place. So when that happens, a home inspector, I'm not a home inspector, all I do is radon. They come in and do a full inspection of the home. And one of the tests that they offer, along with sewer and other things that they do, is a radon test. So if it's a real estate transaction, there can be a 48-hour test that happens. So these are generally done with a continuous radon monitor. So for that 48 hours, it actually takes 44 hours of that 48. It excludes the first 4 hours, and then it gives you an average of, through that entire time, what the levels were at. So that's where they determine, is it over 4.0 picocurie liters where it needs to be mitigated, or is it under?
Mm-hmm. So then with the whole house inspection too, So at that point, if it is over or whatever, then is that when they would call you to come in, or just a radon mitigation company in general?
Right. So any radon mitigation company, that's their next step. So the inspectors generally don't say, this is who you should use or this is who you should not use. They just give them the information of this is where it is. And I encourage everybody, if they're going to have a radon mitigation done in their house, to do their homework on who they're hiring. I like having my name as a part of my company because I stand behind everything I do, and I want everything to be done as I would do it in my home. So,
Yeah.
That's awesome. I like that.
I mean, it's great that you stand behind everything you do. I mean, that really is how every company should be, and that value is just great to have.
Correct. I agree.
Absolutely. So what are some signs that there might be radon in your home?
There is absolutely no signs.
That's scary.
You cannot see it and you cannot smell it. So the only thing you can do is to have your home tested. So in getting back to testing that we kind of talked about earlier, besides a continuous radon monitor actually showing what the levels are for that 48 hours, it's best to do a long-term test, which is over 90 days. So this is something that you can buy at Home Depot. They're Menards, any big box store usually carries them, but usually it's a charcoal activated canister that you can put out, and you just have to be very specific with what day you put it out, opened it, and it started exposing it to what day you sealed it, and then you mail that off, and they'll send you the test results back.
So at what point would somebody know, just do that test and then know, the next step is to call somebody? Or do you recommend that they do an at-home test before reaching out to an actual radon company?
Yeah. Most of my business comes from some type of real estate transaction. So when that happens, whether they're asking the buyers or sellers are going to negotiate or not, they're going to know that their levels are at a certain level. So it is always best to have a long-term test in there, just because you have a more accurate, instead of just a 48-hour period, you've got a very, very extended period of time that you're able to look at and see what the actual average is of a home. It's best to have at least one heating season inside that long-term test, just because houses, when it's cold outside, houses create more suction. And when it's doing that, it's pulling radon gases up. It can be pulling them up a lot higher than it would be for, let's say, in the summertime.
Yeah.
So can you explain a little bit the how much it kind of varies with the amount of radon? Like if you actually look at a radon test, it goes up and down pretty continuously throughout the time it's in there.
Correct. Yeah. Generally, you'll see that there is a pretty constant that's in between there. So you'll see that maybe, for example, if it's one of the lower levels is at 3, and you'll see it bump up to 5. And every now and then you'll have spikes that'll get into there that can be, double, triple that amount.
Yeah.
Generally, you can look at temperature, humidity. If a storm came through, all those things can affect how your home is, the pressure inside your home, and how much is pulling up through there. So extreme rainfalls and snowfalls, any pathway that radon has to go not inside your home and be inside your footing, it might push that to where it's going to travel inside your home. So that normal pathway that was there is now closed, and it's finding a different way to come in. So that can make a level higher in your house.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. I what's funny is I would have thought that it would have been the opposite when it had to do with cooling and heating. Because whenever you think of when it's warmer outside, or just in general, heat rises, cools at the bottom. So then, but that makes sense with the suction, with how cold it is, that it would create that extra pressure, and I just, for some reason in my brain, I was like, oh, that's backwards from how I would have thought about it. But I mean, it does make sense.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Radon's actually, I think it's 7.8 times heavier than air. Probably shouldn't give that number, but it's heavier than air. So normally, if there wasn't any type of suction, it's not going to be pulling up through the house like that.
Yeah.
But when it goes from the lower to the higher, obviously there's more fresh air up there, and it's diluting it as well. So the concentration levels aren't going to be as high the higher you get up through a house. Yeah.
So, I mean, what are some tips or advice that you could give to homeowners or even home buyers, or I guess anyone living in a home, in regards to awareness and just like mitigation?
So the one thing that will always come back is you have to test. You don't know what's happening unless you have a test done to see exactly what the levels are. If you know that your home has elevated levels and you're gonna go through the mitigation process, obviously find a reputable mitigation company. And what typically will happen, and this is just most of the homes, this is what happens. I use a core drill, so I drill about a 5-inch hole through the slab, whether that's on a slab house or in a basement, whatever the lowest level is. I'll drill a 5-inch core hole, and then you dig out what's called a suction pit underneath there. So generally 10 to 15 gallons worth of whatever's underneath there, debris from underneath that concrete slab. After you have that done, you seal that area with PVC pipe. It extends up, and then it'll either go outside of the house where a radon fan is mounted, or sometimes it'll get routed into an attic, and a fan can be mounted in the attic then and then go through the roof.
Yeah.
But there's always different heights that need to be followed. So radon systems have to be vented at least either above the gutter line or at least 12 foot above grade, or there's different levels for or not levels. There's different guidelines, but every house is going to be different just because of the shape of it and roof lines and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you have any stories in relation to like radon or radon testing that you've had, or?
No, not really stories. It's always interesting to see. You think you'll be at a area when everything is an unknown. So you unless somebody has a picture of what is underneath that concrete slab, you don't know what you're going to be dealing with.
Yeah.
So when I open up a hole and I'm getting ready to start my process, after that hole's opened up, I don't know if I'm going to find gravel or sand or clay or mud or a combination of everything. I know that if there's gravel underneath there, you can draw air across gravel a lot easier than you can if it's a home that's built on like clay, for instance.
Yeah.
So the more airflow that you can get to just go over that area, the easier it is to actually get rid of the radon.
Yeah.
So what is trying to happen through the mitigation process is we want to get airflow from where that suction hole is from the other side of the house. So we want to be able to draw air that whole way over there, which just prevents the gases from coming into the house, and we just create a natural way for it to go.
Interesting. Thank you.
Well, do we want to move on to our game, or do you have any other questions? Or
No, let's just go to the game. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Sweet.
Sure.
Well, it's fact or fiction. So you're going to say whether or not the statement is true or not. And then if you want to expand on it, you can.
Okay.
So we will not limit you on that. Do you want to read it, Emily?
I'll go for it.
I've liked that you've been reading them.
Okay, so radon is only a concern in certain geographical areas with a high levels of uranium in soil. Fact or fiction?
It's fiction. So it's going to be found in, I think it's been found in all soil types throughout the United States. So it's everywhere. It's just the level of concentration that it's going to be. Generally, you have areas that you know are going to be higher, but just because you don't live in a higher zone doesn't mean that you might not have a problem inside your house. So Douglas County is one of the elevated regions. But if you go straight south of us to Franklin County, I think it drops down either 1 or 2 levels. I can't remember what it is. So
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Radon is the leading cause of lung cancer among non-smokers. Fact or fiction?
The leading non-smokers. Yes, I believe that's fact, if I remember right.
Okay.
You're saying that. And I'm thinking in my head, it accounts for, the EPA estimates that there's 21,000 deaths every year from radon exposure. Yes.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
In non-smokers. Yeah.
That is scary.
Yeah, that's really scary. Radon testing kits are inexpensive and easy to use, making it simple for homeowners to test their homes for radon levels. Fact or fiction?
That is fact.
Awesome.
So it is very easy to do. Like I said, the test can be bought at Home Depot or Menards, any of those places. And it's just as simple as following instructions, and it tells you what needs to be done.
Awesome. So radon mitigation involves sealing cracks and installing ventilation systems to reduce radon levels in a home. Fact or fiction?
That is fact. So yes, on top of me trying to create suction underneath there, cold joints where that concrete meets the a wall always usually leaves a gap, and it's best if you can seal any cracks that you can, just because it helps create more suction underneath there, as well as prevents areas where radon can easily come into the home.
Yeah.
So radon gas can only enter homes through cracks in the foundation is the next question. Fact or fiction?
That is false. No, if all the cracks are sealed in there, concrete is still porous, and radon gases can pass through it.
Okay. Radon levels tend to be higher during the winter months when homes are more tightly sealed. Fact or fiction?
It's fact.
Fact?
So typically that's what you'll see is the levels are a little higher during the wintertime just because your house creates more suction.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, is there any finishing, I really want people to know this, or anything we didn't touch on that you really wanted to talk about today?
I don't believe so. The most important thing is just to get your home tested.
Awesome. Thank you. You've given a lot of really good info. I've learned a lot.
Yeah. I didn't know any of this.
Right, yeah. It kind of opened my eyes to it the more I started realizing there's a little more to it than most people know about.
Absolutely.
And so, what made you want to get into this?
I was just kind of at a point where I saw that there was a need for it in Douglas County. So there's a lot of companies that are in Kansas City and the greater KC area. And a lot of those companies were traveling into Lawrence and doing the work here. I'm now not only the only one that does it, but I'm one of the only ones here in Douglas County that actually does it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And honestly, that's true entrepreneurial spirit. Wow. I did not say entrepreneurial spirit. Why can I not speak today? You just see a need and then you just kind of make it happen. And that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's been quite a process. I learned a lot in that, in a very short period of time. And then the more experience I've had with it, the more things that I'm learning and little things that you can do to make things more efficient and better. And
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on today.
You got it.
And thank you to the Lawrence Public Library for letting us use this space. And we're just so thankful that we're even able to do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, okay. Signing off.
Thanks for joining us on Lawrence Real and Local, Keeping It Real podcast. We appreciate our guests taking the time to join us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you've enjoyed today's episode.
For more information, please visit us on the web, www.lawrencerealtor.com. And remember, whether you're buying, selling, or simply dreaming of your future home, we're here to help. Until next time, keep it real
And happy house hunting.